How can we stop this? I mean, corporate wokeism, you write about that in your book, it's just become a major force and very quickly. Why has that happened?
Absolutely. And it's not just in the corporate sector, as you say, it's in the UK, it's absolutely endemic within the National Health Service and within the civil service. So we're having police coming, knocking on our doors for sending tweets that might offend people. We're actually paying for those police officers out of our taxes. You know, I'm paying for the NHS that employs more diversity officers than you know what to do with. And yet I can't actually get to see a doctor within 3 days of falling ill. You know, these things are absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, it's absolutely endemic within the private sector as well. I mean, the change that's needed is cultural. It's huge. It involves people standing up for themselves, making our voices heard, saying we don't want this, exercising our views at the ballot box at every available opportunity. And I think it really is only then when our elite realise quite how unpopular they are, the extent to which ordinary people have absolutely no truck with this whatsoever. Again, just to reiterate the point you made at the beginning, not because people are racist or sexist or bigoted in any way whatsoever, precisely the opposite. It's because we're not racist, we're not sexist, we've moved on from those outdated beliefs. You know, we couldn't care less. I couldn't care less what somebody wears. If a man wants to wear a dress, you know, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Just don't call yourself a woman and don't try and go in the ladies' toilets, you know. But I think society is more tolerant, less prejudiced, less bigoted than ever before. And it's because I think people recognise that we realise that the race hustlers, if you like, the people trying to divide us, are the people calling themselves, you know, people who are woke and coming from the top of society. And I think it's just by calling this out continuously that we're going to bring about the kind of cultural change, a much deeper cultural change that we actually need now.
Well, I mean, as you say, I mean, it's self-evident that this is not the popular will. It's the will of a few people. So why do they seem so unable to stamp it out, to do what people want to do and just get this stuff out of their lives?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, to some extent, I think that just the will is not really there. I mean, one thing that concerns me about certainly British politicians, I suspect it's probably the same in Australia as well, is you wonder who are they actually serving? Who are they representing, and whose interests have they got at heart when they go into Parliament? Because it certainly doesn't seem to be my interests and the interests of most people I know. It seems to me that certainly since the advent of social media, when our politicians get into Parliament and make their little speeches, they're much more preoccupied about how this plays out on Twitter, how this plays out on social media, how many retweets it'll get, how many likes it will get, how it will be reported in the mainstream media, than they are about the response from their constituents back home in some kind of northeastern town in the UK that they hope to go to as little as possible. And I think that's become a really, really big problem. And it means that the actual will to push back against some of these culture wars issues is just not really there.
Well, OK, look, in the brief amount of time we've got left, a glimmer of hope. And the glimmer of hope I'm going to offer you is this, ADH TV. Spiked Online, which you write for, another independent publication which is completely independent of mainstream media. I guess even the book, you know, published by Spiked Online, an independent publisher for a book that you probably would have struggled to get published in the mainstream. Surely this is an indication this battle can be won. We have the means to fight back and the means to talk back, and if we seize that opportunity, we can turn the tables.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real glimmer of positivity on the horizon, and I really hope this is the case. I guess one thing, sorry, I know you want to end on a positive note, but I think one thing that worries me a little bit is the potential for balkanisation, that we kind of just become increasingly divided in our media consumption. But ultimately, you know, I think that's not, if that does happen, that's not our fault. That's a fair response. People need to hear and see their own views represented in the media, and all these independent channels make that much more possible.